All right, good evening, everyone. This is Carly Kovacic with this special weather briefing for the potential winter weather expected overnight tonight and tomorrow morning. The highlights of this presentation include the following. There's still a lot of uncertainty in both the coverage and the timing of freezing rain tonight and tomorrow morning. However, confidence is increasing that if freezing rain does occur, there's going to be high impacts. So what's going to happen is the moisture is going to move in early Monday morning from the west, say between about 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. for northwest Georgia, and then that's going to progress eastwards towards the Atlanta metro between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m., and then it will continue further east through the morning after that. At this point, confidence is high that any and all wintry precipitation that we will be dealing with is going to be in the form of freezing rain and freezing drizzle. So we're not expecting sleet or snow with this. We will see a transition to all rain by early afternoon on Monday. The eastern counties of Georgia are going to be the last to change over. Amounts are still expected to be light, and this is going to remain mostly a travel impact. Shown here is the probability of freezing rain, measurable freezing rain, so greater than a trace, throughout the day on Monday. And what you're seeing here is these blue colors that dip all the way Atlanta and parts of the southern metro. That's about a 40 to 50% chance of seeing freezing rain. And now you can see we've got between a 60 to 70% chance up across portions of northwest Georgia and, again, parts of North Georgia north of the Atlanta metro. So despite these light amounts that we are expecting, the probability of freezing rain is increasing for a good chunk of North Georgia on Monday. So with that in mind, we have issued a winter weather advisory across many of our northern counties, valid across the area for Monday. And this is shown in several different chunks of time frames. We're going to go into details with that here in the next couple slides, but what I want to emphasize with this slide in particular is that all the counties that are shown in the light purple, they are in the winter weather advisory at some point overnight tonight or Monday morning. The main impacts with this is going to be a glaze of ice on roadways, which could lead to hazardous travel conditions. So breaking this down further into each of those segments, we'll begin with the far western portion of the area. The counties highlighted in purple is what we're going to focus on in this slide. The winter weather advisory for these counties is in effect from 1 o'clock this morning or tomorrow, Monday night or Monday morning, through 11 a.m. Monday. And again, this is for those counties that are shown in the purple on the left. So essentially what I've tried to do on the right-hand side of this slide is to show you what the radar might look like overnight tonight going into early Monday. So take it with a grain of salt, but just to kind of let you guys prepare, if you do live in those areas, what you might see when you wake up tomorrow morning. And I've also tried to highlight what the temperatures are also going to be like when we expect the freezing rain onset. So you can see we've got temperatures right around 30 degrees. So they're going to be below freezing. And these are really ideal temperatures for freezing rain. So any light rain showers that are going to enter this portion of the area is going to have the ability to freeze on contact without much issue. Another thing to note is taking the radar with a grain of salt. If you do wake up and look at the radar and you see a lot of the precipitation is still across central or northern Alabama, that doesn't mean that freezing drizzle is not occurring across western portions of Georgia. A lot of the time, freezing drizzle is not going to show up on radar. And so that is going to be a concern through most of this event is the freezing drizzle. So just be aware of that. any drizzle that does occur is also going to freeze on contact, just like freezing rain would. So once again, in summary, for this particular slide, again, we're taking this in chunks with the winter weather advisory. This slide is covering portions of western Georgia where the winter weather advisory is valid from 1 o'clock in the morning through 11 o'clock on Monday. The moisture is going to be moving in from the west, so these areas are going to be the first ones that are going to see any freezing precipitation if it does occur. And we got the 1 a.m. buffer in case freezing drizzle or freezing rain moves in earlier than expected. And then 11 a.m. is when we do expect those temperatures to start cresting above the freezing mark. So now moving to the next section of the winter weather advisory, these counties that are highlighted in this red box, the winter weather advisory is in effect from 5 a.m. through noon on Monday, and this does include the Atlanta metro area. The counties to the west in the purple are still in the winter weather advisory through 11 a.m. But for this slide in particular, we're just going to focus on the counties that I've highlighted in the red box. So it's the same kind of deal. The onset might be a little bit later than what the western area is going to see. But really, same deal. We're going to start to see some light freezing drizzle, possibly some pockets of light freezing rain develop between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. that time frame, and continuing through the mid and latter portion of the morning. And we expect temperatures to rise above freezing around noon or so for these counties highlighted here. And temperatures, still looking at upper 20s to right around 30 degrees, which again is ideal for rain to freeze on contact with the surface. And you see the temperatures in this area are just slightly lower than across the west. That's because we do have a wedge of cold air in place. So the further east you go, the colder it's going to be. Now moving on to the eastern portion of the advisory. Again, now we're just going to focus on the counties highlighted in the red box. This is where the winter weather advisory is in effect from 6 a.m. through 1 p.m. on Monday. So you can see same deal, mid to latter portion of the morning, there's going to be some pockets of light rain and drizzle, and that's going to be able to freeze on contact because you can see those temperatures again are still expected to be right around 30, possibly in the upper 20s, and you're really in that cold wedge of air. So the only thing with this is the moisture is going to be deeper across the west. And as we get to the east, where this area is, the moisture is not going to be quite as deep. So confidence is not quite high on exactly how much this area, if any, we will see in regards to freezing rain. So we kind of took that in chunks. I hope we're all on the same page. Again, all of these counties are in a winter weather advisory. It's just the timeline is going to vary based on when we think that the potential is going to increase. As far as ice accumulation is concerned, this came out with the afternoon forecast package today. This is our latest thinking on what the amounts are going to be potentially. So you can see they're very light. But the thing with this that we're really trying to emphasize is that although we're not expecting much accumulation, given the temperatures are in the upper 20s to right around 30 degrees, there are going to be impacts for areas that do see rain and drizzle because, like I said, it's going to have no problem freezing on contact. So the main impacts with this event is going to be travel related. So we're looking at a glaze on roadways and especially bridges and overpasses. And like I mentioned on the previous slide, we're expecting the deepest moisture to reside across the western portion of the state. So you can see that's where we've got the higher accumulations, and then as we get further east, really not looking at too much, but again, anything that does happen is going to create impacts. In terms of power outages and power lines, with this event, because the amounts are so light, we're not really expecting impacts to that, although across the northwestern portion of the state where we do have those higher accumulations, there could be some isolated impacts in regards to power outages and power lines. So do keep that in mind. But really the main impact with this event is going to be the travel. So in terms of the Atlanta Metro, because of the big game tomorrow, I do want to highlight what kind of timeline we are looking at for this area. It really hasn't changed much for those of you who have been listening in on the webinar yesterday afternoon. The timeline really hasn't changed that much. Our overall period of concern for tomorrow in Atlanta is going to be between 5 a.m. and 1 p.m. As far as the onset of freezing rain, we're thinking most likely it's going to be between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. And the temperature chart on the right-hand side of the slide is valid around 7 o'clock, and you can see we're sitting at 29 degrees in Atlanta. So if we do start to see drizzle or rain, that is going to freeze and potentially cause some hazardous travel. In terms of the ending time of the freezing rain, right now looking at between about 11 o'clock a.m. and 1 p.m. And that's, again, where we expect the temperatures to begin to rise above freezing. The rain's probably not going to end between that time period, but the temperatures will have risen enough to where we do expect that transition to all rain in that time frame. As far as the briefings are concerned, we do have another one that's scheduled at 4 o'clock a.m. on Monday. So I want to emphasize that this is going to be a webinar. It's not just going to be a conference call. So we do have that scheduled, and at this point, any additional email updates are to be determined. We don't really have a set schedule for that at this point because we are going to be doing the webinar at 4 a.m. So at 4 a.m., just like what we're doing now, that is what's scheduled. So just to emphasize and go over everything one more time, I do want to express there's a lot of uncertainty still in the coverage and timing of the freezing rain. However, our confidence is high that if freezing rain does occur, there will be high impacts. And again, that's going to be mainly travel related with a glaze on roadways through the morning hours until we get those temperatures to rise above freezing, which looks like for everyone by the early afternoon is reasonable, but we'll still probably see some rain throughout most of the day. Most of the rain's going to move in early Monday morning for far northwest Georgia, and then progress eastward towards the metro Atlanta, and then further east through the morning hours. And again, that was emphasized in the winter weather advisory, with it starting the earliest across those western counties and then towards Atlanta around 5 a.m. and then those areas east of the metro shortly thereafter. At this point, once again, any wintry precipitation that we do see tomorrow is going to be in the form of freezing rain or freezing drizzle. Everyone should transition to rain by early afternoon, with those eastern counties in the winter weather advisory the last to change over. That's why their winter weather advisory is going to expire at 1 p.m. And even though the amounts are light, we do really want to emphasize that travel could be impacted for those areas that do see any type of precipitation tomorrow morning. So once again, we are going to do the webinar at 4 a.m. So join in on that because we're not quite sure at this point if there's going to be any additional email briefings. I am recording this right now, and like I said, I will be sending this out to everybody after this briefing. We're going to put the slides up on the briefings page. I understand that there's some issues with everybody being able to view those. That's why I'm going to go ahead and send this briefing out as soon as I'm finished. In addition, that's our contact information. Feel free to give us a call at any point this evening or overnight tonight. We'll be here also on social media if you feel more comfortable asking questions there. I'm going to open up the phone to any questions here in a second, and then you also have the opportunity to ask me a question through the little chat box. I'll probably stay on this a couple extra minutes to go over some of those questions, but right now I'll unmute everyone's line